We all have them on our computers, those little, essential, and usually free programs that we just can't live without. A perfect example is Notepad++, right? It's a tool so many people use, you probably wouldn't even think twice about installing it. But in the world of cybersecurity, that exact trust, well, that's what attackers are banking on. Let's dig into how they're doing it. It's a question we should all probably be asking ourselves a lot more often. Because as the old saying goes, if you're not paying for the product, there's a good chance that you are the product. Or, in this case, your internet connection is. And that right there is the heart of what we're talking about today. There's a pretty sophisticated campaign out there that's using the good name of Notepad++ to trick people into installing malware. But this malware isn't after your files or your passwords, it's after something completely different, your bandwidth. So, let's get into the main event here, the Notepad++ Imposter. We're going to break down this specific type of cyber threat that's really been picking up steam, a technique that's known as proxyjacking. Okay, so what in the world is proxyware? Well, you can think of it as malware with a really simple but incredibly sneaky business model. It infects your computer, and then it quietly starts renting out your internet connection to other people. So you're the one paying your internet bill, but somebody else is making a profit from it, all happening right under your nose. Now, you've probably heard of cryptojacking, right? That's when malware hijacks your computer's processing power to mine cryptocurrency, slowing your machine down to a crawl. Well, think of proxyjacking as its network-based cousin. Instead of stealing your computer's horsepower, it's stealing your internet bandwidth. The resource they're targeting is different, but the goal is exactly the same. Make money off of your stuff without you knowing about it. So, how does this whole mess even start? I mean, how are these attackers convincing people to install this stuff in the first place? Well, it all kicks off with something super common, just searching online for some free software. And this isn't just some random, scattered attack. No, this is a planned out, organized operation. In fact, security researchers have been tracking the group behind it, and they've given them a name, Larva-25012. The trap itself is actually pretty simple, but boy, is it effective. It usually starts when someone searches for a cracked or free version of a popular program. They'll click on some sketchy ad, which then takes them to a fake download site that looks totally legit. And get this, the final malicious file is often hosted on GitHub, which uses its good reputation to make the files seem trustworthy. It is a classic bait and switch. The second that user clicks download, the digital heist is on. And this isn't just some simple virus install. We're talking about a multi-stage process that's specifically designed to be as quiet and as stealthy as possible. And this just shows how flexible the attackers are. Larva-25012 has two main ways of delivering the payload. One is a pretty standard MSI installer, but the other is a zip file that actually has the legitimate Notepad++ installer inside, along with a hidden malicious file. This second method uses a really clever trick called DLL side loading, where the real program is tricked into loading the malware for them. Two different paths, but they both lead to the same nasty destination. So once it's on your system, the malware immediately gets to work making itself at home. First, it sets up a scheduled task, and it gives it a clever name like Notepad Update Scheduler, just to make sure it runs every single time you turn on your computer. Then it actively messes with your security by telling Windows Defender to just ignore its files. And then, for the final move, it injects its malicious code into a core Windows process. And that right there is the key to its stealth. By hiding inside explorer.exe, the process that runs your desktop, your taskbar, all your file windows, the malware becomes incredibly hard to find. It's basically like a ghost living inside the very heart of your computer's interface. So, after all this technical sleight of hand, what's the end game? Why go through all this trouble? It's simple, really. It's about money. Your internet connection has just been listed for sale on the open market. This quote from the security researchers at ASEC just sums it up perfectly. The entire point of this whole operation is to hijack what you're paying for so the attackers can sell it. And the people who buy this bandwidth, they might be using it for anything from getting around region-locked streaming content to, hiding their own illegal activities online. And while this threat could pop up anywhere, the data shows this particular campaign has a laser focus. You can see here that the vast majority of victims are in South Korea. That's a huge sign that the attackers are specifically targeting users in that region with fake download sites. Once the malware has set up shop, it quietly installs the actual proxyware programs. In this case, the tools they're using are called Infatica and Digital Pulse. These are the engines that do the real work of redirecting and selling off your bandwidth, all while running totally silently in the background. But this isn't a one-and-done kind of attack. The story doesn't just end here. Like pretty much all cybersecurity threats, this is a constant cat-and-mouse game between the attackers and the people trying to stop them. I mean, just look at this progression. The threat actor, Larva-25012, started out with simpler malware. But when that started getting caught, they didn't just give up. Nope. They rebuilt their tools in different languages, like C++ and Python, to make them harder to detect. And now they're using these really advanced injection techniques that we were just talking about. This whole evolution makes it crystal clear that we are dealing with a really dynamic threat. These attackers are actively learning, they're adapting, and they're constantly changing their methods to stay one step ahead of antivirus software. They're determined to keep their operation running and profitable. You know, this whole case is a huge reminder that the biggest threats often show up disguised as the most familiar things. A simple search for a trusted program can end with a complete stranger taking over your network resources. It really proves that being careful is just not optional anymore. Not when the bad guys are constantly getting smarter. And that really leaves us with the big question, right? How do we evolve with them?